I wanted to start a community. It's just something I always wanted to do. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy hearing founder stories. So Katya and I, we were just grabbing coffee in New York in November, and we started doing our first events in New York in the Jeffersonian style format. So we get together a group of founders, 10, 12 people. We pick a subject that we're all interested in, and then we do a deep dive. So it's just a really fun way to get to know people through their stories, their learnings, their experiences, rather than their backgrounds. So we've been doing it since then, and now we're trying different formats. We're trying to expand them. And I'm super excited about today's conversation. I just want to thank Katya and Stifel team for sponsoring this occasion. So Katya, I'll pass it on to you.
I have my mic. Well, thank you, everyone. I know this is kind of the end of the tech week, so I'm sure this is your event number 20-something. So thank you so much for showing up. We have an amazing crowd in the room today. It's been a pleasure to host these events with Max. He's doing all the heavy lifting on managing conversations post the events, which I suck at. But in reality, I've been shoveling shit since I was born in USSR. So you guess how much shit was that. That's the true reality. But it's such a pleasure to actually have this special event, to have a deeper conversation about deeper entrepreneurial shit. A few words about Stifel will be introduced by Brad Ellis, who is the head of the venture group, head of ventures and fund banking within Stifel. I'll pass it to you in a second. And then after that, we have a special surprise in terms of like how the conversation will be structured with Kass and Mike. Not going to mention that right now, so bear with us. But thanks again. Brad, please mention a few words why Stifel is amazing and why you're doing such a great job to, like, as a leader of this group, and how we support founders and fund managers.
Welcome, everybody. I'm sure are you guys tired yet? No? Okay. All right. Love it. So I'll be really fast, but I got to know their business really early on. I think it was Series A land, and fell in love with the team there, and to see the book come out and the excitement around that we've seen this week. So if any of you want additional copies for folks at your company, let us know. Other founders that that would like to that you think this would be relevant for, we'd love to help with that. And they it really resonates because I've been raising a family, doing we started Stifel Venture Banking and Fund Banking with two people 6.5 years ago, and it's 130 people, and we've put $15 billion to work, and you're at a bank, so you are shoveling a lot of shit and regulators and all that stuff. But we love supporting the entrepreneurial community. In a nutshell, we are supporting VCs, growth equity funds, their companies with both treasury services, advisory, investment banking, wealth management. We are focused on mainly supporting entrepreneurs on their journey, though, and how can we help you from as early as seed stage through kind of pre-IPO. So give us a shout if there's if we can help, and we love to just kick around ideas too, and help you out with introductions to sources of capital, and just be a value add to your business. So we'll let this thing get started, and thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks. Funny enough, we hosted the workshop earlier, like AI workshop, how founders can leverage AI for fundraising. There was a founder who took his company public with Stifel, his biotech, I think 2022. Now he's building his another startup, and he didn't know that Stifel is doing venture banking. He was like, I raised seed round 1.5. I didn't know. I'm like, with TD Bank. I'm like, what? Why you like? Why? And of course, it's across from his apartment. So actually, Stifel is good as early as pre-seed, like literally from idea. We have great startup bundles, but we can talk more about that anytime after, it doesn't matter. But I also wanted to say special thanks to our other co-hosts. I don't know if Propeller is here today. I love those partners. They sponsor and pay for drinks and they don't show up. They're great. So, and Savos as well. So I don't know if you want to mention a few words about them, but they're hosting, having us here at their amazing office.
Yeah, and Savills, it's a brokerage firm. So if you guys have any office needs, come talk to me and we'll get you covered. But they're the ones who provided this great space. And just one last comment before we start. We're also doing a lot of events in the Hamptons this Labor Day weekend. We're doing a tennis tournament, a co-working club. We're doing surf lessons and beach party, and it's all complimentary, thanks to Stifel. So we're going to be selecting 5 people from this group tomorrow, and we'll let you know who gets an invite to at least one of those events. So thank you for being here, and I know a lot of people RSVP'd, and you're actually the ones who showed up. So that's appreciated.
Well, now, Kass and Mike, please take the stage. So how do we do this? We have a special moderator that they didn't know. That's why he's here. I'll let you take it from here. Thanks a lot. Just for the picture. We kept it a really surprise who will moderate the panel until the very last moment. And I don't know, how do you guys feel about this?
I love it.
Because originally it was supposed to be Brad.
So I'll introduce myself real quick. I was the 5th employee at Buddy Media. And so Mike and Kass have gotten a lot of good introductions this week. I've heard a few. They get introduced as partner and wife, dynamic duo, co-founders that founded the company Buddy Media that was sold for $745 million. I was the 5th employee at that company, but they've been entrepreneurs their entire lives, starting in college, going all the way back to UWire. They sold golf.com before they moved to New York for $25 million and have invested in over 100 startups that have realized gains of over 10 billion. But other than that, they're just some of my best friends and great people. And I love you both. And I like to say that I moved to New York right before I started with Buddy Media. And I had no money, no network, no experience. And 4 years later, after I joined Buddy Media, I was an executive at Salesforce. I had a big network and a reputation, and I was a millionaire. So thank you.
All your work.
All right. So we're going to do a fireside chat style for about 30 minutes, and then we can get into some Q&A for anybody that has questions. But just by show of hands, who in here is running a business right now? Like, who's actually shoveling shit running a business? So most people in the room. So you will feel the things that we'll talk about now when you go through creating a business like Mike and Kass have. And hopefully it'll make you feel better, because when I read the book, it made me feel less alone when I'm out there shoveling shit. And everybody told their shoveling shit story in the beginning. I shoveled literal shit. Like, I grew up on a turkey farm. I literally did it. I actually shoveled like literal shit, like actual turkey shit. That was my first job. So my first question, when Buddy Media employees came in the very beginning, their first assignment was to put together their desk, a different type of shit shoveling. Why do you think that was so important as part of the culture in the beginning?
I think I wanted people to realize that everybody was at the same level despite titles. And just a little footnote there, I was never going to inflate titles. And I wanted people to feel their hard work. And I figured, just like we did a lot of charitable work all together, that if they could build their desk right in the beginning, it wasn't like, oh, I was going to do it or Mike was going to do it or this was going to be done for them, that we were in this all together and it was going to be hard work.
Yeah. And the charity thing, you guys have given back to Cycle for Survival, have raised over $375 million for cancer research, and you were doing it since the beginning. I think it's interesting because when things are really hard, it's hard to give back because you want to protect yourself.
Right.
You know, I struggle with this all the time, but you were giving from the very beginning. Why do you think that's important? And how did you make time for that when things feel like they're falling apart?
I think we both, I'm going to let you talk too, Mike. Just want you to, I think we both come from families where we were shown, here you go, look at that. We were shown,
I've earned a mic.
we were shown that you give back. You give back and you kind of think larger than yourselves. And I think that's something that I just was kind of bred into me. But I do know that I figured out over the last 10 years, like what the formula for culture is, even in this remote workspace. So the first is radical transparency. And you'll remember this better than anyone. We shared financials. We shared when things were going well. We shared when things weren't going well. And as a result of that, people had no surprises. And with no surprises, it means that when Mike decides to, or MJ decides to like pivot and do something, or bad news happens, no one's going to jump ship. The second part was really doing activities, bonding activities. Yes, it's harder over the remote workforce. Please don't do Zoom games or Zoom happy hours. Those don't count. But you have to take time as founders and meet with people in person. And if that means having a budget, all of our portfolio companies, we tell they should have a budget to go travel to the hubs, right? If you can't bring everybody in, you should be traveling around 4 times a year. I know everyone, I'm seeing smiles from this gentleman in the front. You're like drinking beer. It's hard to do, but it's a necessary thing, okay? Because you're not going to build that glue. But the biggest glue we ever had was picking a cause and having everybody participate, because it was something bigger than the company, bigger than ourselves. And it just became something where everybody felt good at the same time. And it was real physical, right? It wasn't just like writing a check or like putting a donation in a box. We were actually doing something. Yes, we raised money for a cause, but we actually cycled all together.
Do you think Buddy Media could have been as successful without that type of culture?
No, 100% no, no way.
Yeah. So
We had a cult.
we had a cult.
Yes.
Part of that cult was when you got a job at Buddy Media, you were born into a team.
Yeah.
The team was either white,
Yeah.
or the team was blue.
Yeah.
You could never switch teams,
Never.
and you were on that team for the duration, for as long as you were at Buddy Media.
Yeah.
Why do you think that kind of rivalry was important?
Competition, for whatever reason, seems to bring people closer together. I think of it like if you go into college and you have like a sorority or fraternity, or you have clubs, you're raising money, you're doing charitable acts together. There's something about competition that brings, it can bring some really bad characteristics. Trust me, like I'm the most competitive person in the world, but you have to put it in light of, doing activities that everybody can do, like kickball. Everybody can kick a ball. I couldn't really kick a ball, but like everybody could kick a ball.
I remember you caught one with your face.
Oh my God, I did. That was horrible.
Someone I think second day of work, kicked the kickball right into her face.
And then you told me this
I was
guy,
like, uh-oh,
this
that's
guy,
not
we
good.
were in front of like 40 employees, and this guy comes up, and I definitely had a concussion, and he goes, "There's no crying in kickball." And I'm like, I'm not crying, but I can't see. So
I was worried about you. I didn't want anything bad. But then Mike pulled a hammy.
yeah, it's true. You
Like
did.
that was like
Do you
a
remember?
severe. Yeah, I was using the copy machine and I reached down and I pulled a hamstring. I don't remember when. I'm on blood thinner because I have an artificial heart valve, among other things. And when I pull a hamstring, my whole leg turns like black from like the blood
Pulling up.
bleeding. And Kass like, "Oh, you didn't pull a hamstring." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I did." Like, look at my leg. But those are just like stories in a company that if you're not in the office, like
You can't
you
have them.
can't like make fun of each other. You can't laugh. You
Like,
can't,
think about, everybody obviously comes from a family, but think about if you had one family memory. Like, I didn't have the greatest family, but I have a couple memories that were epic. And they weren't epic because we did something extraordinary. They just had funny memories, right? And then they become core memories. And then you want to show up because you have friends. And then you don't want to let those friends down. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, there's a cause here too that's bigger than this company. And I love coming to work more than I don't, right?
One of the things I used to tell employees was do the job that you have and do the job that you want. There's a lot of folks in this room who are managing teams, big or small. They're trying to figure out the right way to motivate employees so they could get performance out of their business. That's something that's stuck with me. And it's something that I tell to my employees to this day all the time. How do you think about do the job that you have and do the job that you want? And how did that become your mantra?
Basically, I hate people coming to me with complaints or asks without solutions. And being the last kid, I was kind of taught that way. And the only thing I could say is if I see you doing your job and the one you want, I will promote you, period. I will, because it's just proof right there. So it was a tool, and I urge all of you to use it too, because it shuts people up. So they can be like, you know, I'd really like to get a promotion. I've been here a couple of years, or like, oh, I could do that job. Like, you haven't done it yet. So be that person who does everything.
Mike used to say momentum is everything, like in our business, just continuing to progress and grow. For folks in here who are running businesses that aren't getting the momentum that they want, what would you say is like, how do you build momentum? How do you do that from a, cultural perspective, sales perspective, et cetera? And how critical is it to your startup?
so therein lies the issue with startups, because you're a startup, you're not a company, and you don't have revenue. You definitely don't have profits when you start. Most companies, service companies, others do. These AI companies now do. Like, I had dinner with one that reached 100 million in ARR with 30 people. But for the most part, they don't. And so the way I think everyone in the room has to kind of get momentum is through focus. Like, what do you want to be as a company? And what do you need to do to accomplish that goal, right? Way too many entrepreneurs, especially today with like AI tools and all these opportunities, try to do too much. And you could do anything, you just can't do everything, right? Especially at once. And so I think the best way to get momentum is like, we're going to focus on getting 10 customers. That's all we're doing this quarter. Nothing else matters, which we did at the beginning. We're just like, we're focusing on customers. The reason why MJ is important is we didn't focus on customer success for a while. MJ ran our customer success. We're like, uh-oh, we did really good with customers, but now they're saying goodbye to us, right? So you're always changing your focus. And we had a few times in our company where we really had to shore up. Remember, like, we did the red alert process, early indicators for when customers weren't happy, they weren't logging into the software, they weren't succeeding with it. How do we get ahead of that? Because we lost some early customers, and it was like painful. Like, you put so much effort into getting customers, then to see them leave. We were an enterprise product, and it's a little different. Like, our playbook that we ran, we don't run anymore. These things constantly evolve. And we've learned, I think, more from our investments now, like 100 of them, many software companies. And if you can't say that the number one priority is this, number two is this, number three is this, you're not focused, you'll never get momentum. We also, Kass had a saying, perception is reality. And the way we marketed, we always wanted to be bigger. We always wanted to portray ourselves as bigger than we were. Part of that was manifesting in an organization. If they thought we're bigger, they're going to act bigger, right? We priced the product bigger. We were the most expensive in the market, which I loved. And we were most expensive and probably like the 8th best. I don't know. Like, we didn't have the best product, but our product wasn't like for a long time. But you'd go into an airport, there'd be like Buddy Media ads, like, you know, I would be on stages,
Yeah,
we'd be
I mean,
writing.
we
We got the
leadership.
right logos. So we got the right logos up front. That was really critical to get the logos that people would look at our company. It looked big because we had Ford and Starwood and Unilever, and God knows why they chose us when there was like 30
There's a
people.
relationship building
Yeah.
because of you and Jeff and how
Definitely.
yeah, well, but you guys really worked on building relationships. And I think that's another big thing about momentum is that the more like everyone's like, oh, how much do I have to network to get customers? And then what? You should always be networking. You should always be talking to everybody. You never know who is a client, a potential client. And when you get that client, do wonderful human things for them. We had an incredible team that if they had some anniversary or birthday, like there were handwritten notes, there was everything because we wanted to build that relationship and keep it strong so that the momentum would keep going. Because your best advocate for your momentum are your clients. If they start talking about how well, you know, what a great product you have or service, that helps you get more clients. That helps you get how many people want to do case studies with clients? And you always get that, well, I'm not, you know, we don't really do that. Well, send them cupcakes on their birthday. They'll let you do it. Right? Things like that. You got to think outside the box.
So dream big has been an idea that you've always talked about. We talked about it at Buddy Media, but then after Buddy Media, your message to everybody has always been dream big. But let's talk about dream big and fear, which are two different things. When you are afraid and there's a lot of fear in being an entrepreneur, I'm sure there's people in this room right now who are like, everything's fine, but you're like secretly worried that you're fucked. I know there's some people in this room and I've been there. It's hard to be creative. It's hard to push the boundaries. It's hard to be positive. So like, how do you hold both of those things together?
Fear is your business partner, whether you like it or not. It'll never go away. And you're running out of money. You're scared that employees are going to leave. You don't want to get on that stage because you don't like public speaking, which was an issue with me early on. I never liked public speaking. And it was just like exposure therapy. Eventually, I'm like, okay, whatever. And so fear makes you do the wrong things at the end of the day. And it's both personally and professionally. And so as the founder, you need to kind of jump out of the airplane and get people to follow you. And it's never going to be like without fear jumping out of a plane. Like it's scary, right? Like you're inventing something new. You're asking for business. You're like doing stuff that's new. And I think the way that we were able to deal with fear was going back to focus. That like, oh no, this is what we're trying to do. Like we have to do this. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs who end up making the wrong decisions because the thinking goes something like, well, I just raised money. I told investors I would do this. I know that it's not working, but I don't want to tell the investors that. So I'm just going to keep doing it. Right? Or what's my mom going to think? Or what's like this new employee going to think? I'm going to have to let the employee go because we don't have that business line if I shut down this business line that's not generating any revenue, right? So there are all of these reasons that we don't do things, and it comes back to fear, which then breeds uncertainty and then doubt, self-doubt. And so part of what this book is like the 50 cheat codes that when we put together helped us build our confidence after making mistakes. And once you build your confidence, you can make better decisions. You can hire better, fire better, create culture without being beholden to this business partner named fear.
When I was running my startup, I just had my first son. It was like the scariest point in my life, like probably the most miserable that I've ever felt. Like running a startup, not making any money, just had a kid. You have 3 beautiful children. You know, you had children as you were growing these businesses, starting these businesses. Do you think it's good for an entrepreneur to have kids?
That's a loaded question, MJ. Do I think it's good? So here's the deal, and I'll be absolutely truthful. We had never thought we would have kids. And yes, everyone's like, wow, you have 3. And yes, they know this. I've talked to each of them about this. But we also didn't want to miss out on having kids. And so my mentality was there's never going to be a good time. It's like taking a vacation. So if you want to not miss out on it, notice how I'm saying that. If you want to not miss out on it, not that you would definitely know that, I don't know, there's maybe a group of people who know for sure they want to be parents, but I think entrepreneurs have this incredible gene of suffering. So they get punched a lot in the face and then they're okay with it and then they get a little win. That's kind of like having kids, right? There's not a lot of ROI on kids for a long time. So if you don't want to miss them, I would have them when you're doing your startup. Because in the beginning, and this is my theory, I can only tell you our examples. We have 3 kids, 23, 21, and 18. When MJ came on board, I just had our last child. So she was 3 months old. And I was bringing her in to the office in like a pram. So I knew in the beginning years that a lot of people could love them. They could change their diapers. They could walk them to school. They could read to them. Small problems, small kids. But when they get older, right? Bigger problems with bigger kids. So I would jump and I would do it as soon as you can.
I also had kids.
So when you're getting punched in the face
Yeah.
in a business, it's really hard to be optimistic. It's like whatever the saying is, forget the last play. It's like I watch Bridges on the Knicks. He like just keeps bricking and he just keeps shooting. It's like, oh shit, he's gonna shoot it again. Oh wow, he's gonna actually shoot it again. That's insane. When I take a big L, for me, it's hard to like get back out there.
Yeah.
But you've done that over and over and over again. And if you didn't do that, you wouldn't be as successful as you are now. You wouldn't live the life that you're living now, which is awesome. So how do you like take a punch in the face and then stay optimistic after that happens?
Well, can I get, how many people of the founders are more the operation side? Okay. And then how many people are more the visionary product side? So I actually think the way to answer this is you and I are on the same side. We've always been very operational. I hate losing. I hate fucking losing. I hate it. And so I think
So do I, for the record.
Okay, I'm glad you know that too, but you're not as competitive as I. What I was going to say is that what fuels me to get back out there is not having, so I want to make up for the L with more wins. That's how I think about it. How do you do it?
MJ remembers this. We launched one of them, you weren't there, but the other ones I think you were. We pivoted 3 times.
I was there for all of them.
Were you there for Ace Bucks? Okay, so you were there for all of them.
You gotta earn them to burn them.
Yeah. So I apologize. I thought that was very short-lived in my mind. Well, we launched as Ace Bucks, which there's some friends in the room that remember. Hopefully you don't have your Ace Bucks, they're worth nothing. But it was a currency for Facebook and it was a really bad idea. And we just ripped the Band-Aid off and we went to another bad idea, raffles.
That was horrible.
Okay, I'm talking now. You're very talkative tonight. I like it. And then we went to custom apps, which is like, we stayed close to the customers and we're like, okay, you don't like Ace Bucks, you don't like raffles. What do you like? Oh, we need help on Facebook. Like we need help building apps and all this stuff. We did that, but it wasn't scalable. And we had to rip the Band-Aid off something that was working and making money, but wasn't going to create a venture business. And every time that we got punched in the face by the market, we fully pivoted. There wasn't like, oh, we'll keep our options open. And we went in and I announced the software product to, I think, the Wall Street Journal.
Yes, you did.
Right after Facebook launched something. And I announced the first ever Facebook page management system, which was the first time our head of product and technology had ever heard of it. And you. And the reason I did it is I wanted to pivot the organization, but I knew if I asked the organization or asked Kass, maybe they wouldn't have gone along with it. I'm not saying this is a mature thing to do, nor would I do it again, but I basically said, anyone who wants a system to manage all of their Facebook pages. Facebook was hot. It was like AI now is in the media. It hadn't ruined democracy or mental health for our children yet. So we liked it for the most part as a society. And that created momentum because other companies were like, what the fuck? Like Facebook page management system, FPMS. That became social media management system, kind of invented the space. And it put us in a leadership position that we were always announcing stuff that was new while our competitors were trying to build what we had. They didn't know we didn't have it.
But wait, to answer MJ's question, because you're forgetting the question.
Like getting punched in the face.
Okay.
The way I deal with getting punched in the face is like,
You pivot.
yeah, like if you take a loss and it's like not working, you got to do something else. Like, okay, something's not working, which is why you get punched in the face. A customer, you have three options. You keep doing what's not working. That doesn't sound like it makes sense. You shut the business, like, oh, things aren't working, or you pivot. And I'm not saying you have to pivot the whole company always. We pivoted customer success many times because we weren't supporting, customers the right way, how we staffed them, how we communicated, how we got ahead of issues. And so I just think when you, like, if you're a worker, okay, you're just getting like 9 to 5, and something goes bad and you fail, it's like existential. It's like, I'm a failure, right? If you're an entrepreneur, it's like, okay, we're one step closer to getting where we need to be, right? Failure is a feature of entrepreneurship. Like if you are bummed out because you failed with your first product and you're like, it paralyzes you, it's going to be a hard run as an entrepreneur. You got to get it out there. And we say it all the time, too many young entrepreneurs today are just constipated perfectionists. And we have some in our portfolio that's just like, they'll tell you stories of why it's not ready and why it's like, they got to build this. It's got to,
And you've got to get out there to get customer feedback. At the end of
it'll
it,
suck.
yes. And that's okay because you can improve it, right? You got to get the feedback.
I'm going to pivot a little bit. I described Buddy Media in the beginning as like a game of Survivor.
Oh, no.
And the reason is I think by the time we were like 60 people, we had fired 30 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
How important is it for entrepreneurs to be able to cut the fat fast in order to have a culture that wins?
So it's such a great question, MJ. You are going to start with people probably who you like very much and wear multiple hats. And then you're going to find your product market fit, whatever is causing you to have customers or repeat business. And you're going to have to fire some of those people because they're not going to like having fewer responsibilities. They're not going to like being, quote unquote, what they tell me, pigeonholed into one department and things like that. And just like pivoting, I began to I love firing people. Like, I want you to hear that. I love it. I absolutely love it because I feel like it's cleaning my closet, and not in an inhumane way, but really thinking about how do you make sure that you have every single person that's working toward a goal and that everybody else likes. Because if you don't do it, you're not going to get to the 60 people. And one of the things we did is we really rewarded people who got to their first year anniversary. So I want you to hear that. People thought the best gift should be on their 5-year anniversary. I told my entire HR team, the best gift should be if you got through a year. It meant that you could pivot, you could get to a different role, you didn't mind additional responsibilities, you didn't mind change, you had a growth mindset. So we would spend, I think it was like $500 on each custom bobblehead. And if you got to a year, you were in the company. I knew you could keep going.
We used to have a saying, you're a deal maker, you're a deal breaker. And that didn't just mean salespeople.
Right.
What does that mean for an organization, and why should founders care about that and having deal makers on their team?
So I'm gonna do this analogy with lawyers. How many people have had experiences with lawyers in their companies? Yeah. Okay. How many people thought the lawyers could actually understand business decisions and were deal makers versus nervous Nellies and constantly telling you what could go wrong? Right. So I had that same mentality. I grew up in a house full of lawyers. And so I wanted people to be deal makers. I wanted them to say, okay, this didn't happen. This is not what we want. Pick themselves up and move forward. I didn't mind failures. I just minded people who got paralyzed by them. So you have to have a deal maker attitude, and you have to breed it in your company, because the people who can deal with that and become the deal makers, they're going to figure out anything, it doesn't matter. They're going to run through walls for you. And that's what you want.
There was an event 2 nights ago. You did the book release, Shoveling Shit, a lot of work. You guys were shoveling shit, but in that room, I talked to 20, 30 people who you had made better, better. They had grown their careers. They were showing up after 20, 30 years. Some people from, first companies, first jobs. How do you find the time to invest in people? And then actually, that's a shitty question. One time when we were at Buddy Media, I came to you and I was super overwhelmed. And I was like, I need to take one day off just to catch up. I'm like, so much shit's coming at me and I need a day off to catch up. And I wanted sympathy. And I wanted you to be like, oh, just don't take a break, whatever. And you said to me, I'm going to send you 100 fucking emails tonight if you need time to catch up. And I think you were doing 2 things. One,
I never heard that story. It sounds like my life.
it was like at Landmark. And I think one thing you're doing was, one, when you're an entrepreneur, so much shit comes at you, you really have to learn how to focus. But I think also you were just like, knew I could take the shit.
Yeah.
Like, or I don't know, you were like a bulldog. You were like
Yeah.
You were, you grind people to like forge them into something better.
Yeah. Well, so there's a lot in there, MJ. One of my strengths is to figure out who people are. And I really urge entrepreneurs to try to connect with people to figure out, this is going to sound crazy, what is the baggage they're bringing to work? What is their childhood baggage that they bring to work? Because it's going to get in the way in every instance. And they're not going to be able to grow, or they think someone's doing something better than they are. They have a different title, all that kind of stuff. None of that was what you were. I think I believed in that moment that you thought if you took a break for one day, you'd catch up. And I wanted to make sure you knew you would never catch up. And entrepreneurs are never going to have, does anyone have their inbox down to 0? Even in, what's the tool that you use? The human?
Superhuman.
Does anyone have it at 0? Okay. You're never going to catch up. And so I think as an entrepreneur and a founder, your job, if you really want to have a successful company where people will pivot and show up for you and they won't leave when you come in, and like I'd walk around the office, people I have no poker face. They'd be like, oh my God, what happened in that room? And I'm like, oh, an investor just yelled at us. And they're like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to ignore it. Right? Like you have to have the mentality that everybody's in it for you. And then you have to figure out how to make people improve, because everybody wants to be better at something. And it's your job to take that time. And it sucks because it will take so much time. I call it therapy, right? How many people spend hours talking to employees to get them to do what they want them to do? It takes time. But if you do, they will show up for you for 20 years later.
You've said before that you kind of learned your, or you had the idea for how you manage employees and build companies and build cultures from Moneyball. You mentioned in the book, you wrote a chapter about it. What does that mean?
Okay, so Mike decides that we need a date night. And does everybody have a significant other? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, so that's a pretty good thing. If you have family or significant others, you should be trying, if you can afford it, to have a date night at least once a week, no matter what you do. And when we could afford it, we paid that person regardless of whether we went out. Because even if we were home, it was kind of luxurious to be home and have her take care of the kids or whatever thing, like that. But you should put it on the calendar, kids or not, every single, like one day a week. And Mike convinced me we were going to go to a movie, which I thought was a complete waste of time. And I said that there was no way I could watch a 2.5-hour movie, 2 hours, 45 minutes with all the, the previews. And he's like, no, it's Moneyball. You're going to love it. It's like Hoosiers. It's like Field of Dreams. You're going to love it. It's like the best, athletic movie, like sports movie. I'm like, okay. So we go in there and I'm just like, oh my God, has everyone seen it? Who's seen it? Everybody? Okay. It's basically a movie about how to put people in the right position and how you don't need big hitters. So he gets out of it and he's like, oh my God, that was just amazing. And he looks over and I'm crying. And he's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I have to fire 7 people. I've totally made the wrong decision about this one team. We got to get rid of them. We got to move them over here. He's like, did we watch the same movie? And I'm like, yes. So moneyballing is also part of your job. At every point along the way, you have to make sure people are in the right position, or you will have cracks in the foundation and you won't be able to move as fast, right? So you'll be like, God, that team just doesn't get stuff done as fast as I want them to. It's because someone on that team or multiple people are not in the right position.
All right, last question, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. So you're doing something brand new, which is writing a book, and you're going out and you're doing all this press. You're getting on social media, which you said you haven't done for a while. Does it ever, when you're doing something new, does it get any easier? Does it feel any better? Does it still feel painful now that you've had all the success?
So before I answer that, what's so great about this tonight is, MJ really knows. And the truth about Buddy Media is that Kass did everything. And I don't say this facetiously because as a founder, I got all the credit. I was the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. I was on the stages. But if you're an entrepreneur who is the salesperson, vision, product, you need a Kass. And that's like really clear. No, I'm serious. Because what made the company work were all the hard decisions that I hate making. Like, I don't like laying people off. Like, you got to be a sick fuck to like laying people off, right? Like, there's a guy, Patrick Stokes, who we bought his company. He was making websites for nursing homes. And like Kass kind of molded him into who's now the number 3 person at Salesforce. Right? Remember, we came out to we were renting that place in the Hamptons.
Right there he was.
And we hated the Hamptons, but we rented.
He was being a pain in the ass. I think I talked to you about this. And he's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to bring him out. I'm going to have my kids tackle him and play football together. I'm going to break him down with just kid love. And Mike's like,
and we're all young.
And this is Mike's
like, had kids.
Mike's like, this is Father's Day weekend. And I'm like, yeah, that's like an absolute fake holiday. He's like, but Mother's Day isn't. I'm like, yeah, because I had the kids. So bring them out. We just smush them with love and everything. And we got to a vulnerable place. And I know he has strengths. And then you build people back together. But continue. There was a question that MJ had. Do you remember it?
Who's MJ? No. What was the question again? I forget.
No,
I didn't know I was going to be interrupted by this lady.
You interrupted me.
He asked me the question.
How
do I interrupt you?
I honestly forgot the question. I honestly forgot.
Who's listening? This is a test. Kass will get $500. Anyone who knows the question.
It's actually true. I would.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for paying attention so much. I'm Mike, and please come back tomorrow.
All right. Who out there has a question for Mike and Kass?
So I met Mike back in probably 2010. So I would love to hear and I have a Kass at work. His name's Nat. And what was your coaching and feedback for him?
For this guy?
Yes. What, that made him better and at what he did then.
I think he should answer it, not me.
So she actually didn't give me the feedback. She hired this woman, Tammy Jersey.
Smart.
And Tammy is, kind of like an HR consultant.
Executive coach.
Executive coach. And she did a 360 review. She talked to MJ and Jeff, our head of sales. And what came back was the worst report I've ever read in my life. Like I'm distracted, I'm distracting, I'm everything you expect from tonight's session. And I was just getting in the way. I was doing stuff that like, I'd go talk to the engineers because I love engineers, and I'd be like, just shooting the shit. I'd be like, oh, wouldn't it be cool? And then they'd like change the roadmap. I didn't ask them to, but they're like, oh, if Laz thinks it's cool, let's do that. And it was a brilliant move by Kass because we have what's called a marriage that we want to keep in place. And it would have been really hard for Kass. And I think she knew all of my areas of improvement, but she needed someone to deliver them. Did you write that report?
I did not.
Okay. It just crossed my mind. Maybe she wrote it, and there was no Tammy Jersey. Yeah. Well, I asked that because I found out during the book writing process that she was in cahoots with my assistant, and nothing got on my calendar unless it went through Kass. She thought I was doing meetings that were stupid and not productive.
You were.
Which they were, but they were fun. And so, that my issue was which happens with a lot of entrepreneurs, like I wasn't listening. I'd go into meetings just wanting to get my way.
Sorry.
Stuff I've worked on. I mean, this is stuff that like over time I've really worked on. Like I never ran a 500-person company. Like I was in a new position in the spotlight. No, I'm saying that it was one of the most important gifts Kass ever gave me, because this stuff also bleeds into your personal life, how you listen, how you communicate, how you show up. And I wasn't doing any of that the way that any, forget leader, but like kind of positive human being should. And, Kass is not perfect, but what she is like a radical realist. So it's much easier.
I'm right here.
It's much easier for her she delivers bad news so easily. It's like, today is your last day at Buddy Media. You're no longer, and it's like, for me to do that, it's like a 3-hour conversation and the person gets a raise and more money.
Kass is perfect. Next question.
I have two. First of all, co-founder relationships are obviously very difficult on their own, let alone being married. You two appear to still be married. What would you say are the most important factors in ensuring a smooth co-founder relationship?
And that comes from someone who started businesses with his brother.
Yes.
Who I know, which.
No subtext there.
Yeah, we could talk about what's easier.
All right. So I think any co-founder relationship, I don't care how many of them there should be no overlap in skills. Because if you have 2 product people, 2 engineers, 2 ops people, 2 marketing people, I don't care what it is, you're going to fight, you're going to micromanage, and you're going to have strong opinions. And at one point in there, you're going to want to win. You're going to want to win on something. And that doesn't help the company win. So the first thing is you can't have overlapping skill sets. The second thing is you guys should, if you haven't already, you really should have really deep conversations about how you work. Like, what is your work ethic? How much are you going to put into this? How many hours do you expect to work? Why are you doing this? So kind of like a marriage, like, look, all your co-founders out there, don't you text them the first thing in the morning and then text them at night before you go to bed about stuff you're going to do? Like, isn't that what you guys are already doing? So it is kind of like a marriage, right? So you need to have very difficult conversations in the beginning. We just had a head start because we had already been dating. And so that work ethic, like why you're doing this. And also the big question I always ask, like when I'm doing due diligence with partners and co-founders is, what's your priority outside of this? Because I think that's an important question. Like someone might have a family. Someone might say like, I play golf or on Sundays, every Sunday, or I have, this, I don't know, boxing group that I go to. You guys should know that about each other and then not resent it, but embrace it.
Question number 2. Obviously pivoting was essential to your success. Mike, when we first met, you were doing Ace Bucks. I remember sitting next to you at a Facebook developer garage. How did you view pivots, especially, Kass, as you said, you hate to lose. So kind of what was your litmus test? How much was art versus science in terms of like, when it's time to cut it, this is not working, let's go in a different direction?
So I viewed them as just essential because Kass did most of the stuff to run the company, but nothing works if we don't have revenue. Like if we don't have a business model, if we haven't raised money, if we haven't done all this stuff, which is squarely on my plate. Like Kass is not responsible for revenue. Like if we're not generating revenue, that is me, like my neck. And so although Kass knows when things aren't working, I know it faster. And I don't love pivoting, but I'd like it more than the alternative. And it's a combination of when you start anything, you should have clear goals as an entrepreneur. The problem is like we tell ourselves stories, some of us who aren't as grounded, right? And you get one customer and you're killing it, but you miss your revenue numbers by 50%. All you focus on is the customer. Like, what do you mean? We got Unilever. Yeah, but you like lost 3 times the amount of money you thought last quarter, right? And so by putting together the metrics at the beginning, not only your budget.
Metrics of success.
Yeah, not only your budget numbers, which is obviously you need a budget, but how many customers do you expect? You know, what's churn? Like we want to get churn less than 10%. I don't know if we ever achieved it, but like we had these things. So after the period went by, did we succeed or not? Well, it's like binary, right? And then the more important way to know is in your gut, because we all know when things ain't going well. And you admit it to yourself, and then the next 2 weeks, you just talk yourself out of it. Like, what are you talking about? Things aren't going well. Like, we just made this incredible hire, and we've got this office space, and I got this vacation coming up, and I don't want to do anything till after that. And like, there are all these like,
And it's your ego.
yeah. And so you have to like, that first thought of things aren't going well is usually the best one I find for me. And you just have to rip the Band-Aid off. And for me, it was taking steps to do it drastically. Typically going to Kass saying we need to redo some stuff. And you have to, there are 3 things you have to do. You have to admit it's not working. You have to take responsibility. It's not my employee's fault it's not working. I told them to do $8. Like we agreed, like it was my idea, right? So don't make, it's on you, the founder. And then have a plan to move forward that is like a stalking horse. So, as we ran the, and I think MJ will agree, but it wasn't a democracy. Like, I think we were more, by we I mean Kass, like a benevolent dictator. Right?
I would say this. So I remember because I was like young in my career and I was trying to build it. And what I would do is I'd read TechCrunch and Mashable and whatever the things were on the train on the way in. And then I would come to you and be like, hey, like, I think I have this like idea and I just read it and this is going to be amazing because we're at social media and we're on the forefront of that. And you were always like, oh, I already know that. And we're going to do this. And I thought it was, it felt easy for you to have a clear vision. I've worked at a lot of companies after that and haven't seen that. And so it was kind of was a dictatorship, but like you were a step ahead. And I've said that to people in the past. It's like Mike was a step ahead with the vision of the company. The operations obviously were all you, but you were a step ahead with the vision. And I could actually never figure out like how, like, were you reading a lot? Were you, like, what were you doing?
Faster than most people. I do agree with that.
And you talk to people and you talk to smart people.
But you had the confidence to also be like, we're doing this, which is also hard. I think probably hard for a lot of people in this room who are trying to figure out their industries and what to do. And is it the right move? But it's also
like this. I was much more driven by ego at the beginning, which all entrepreneurs, like everyone's like, oh, I don't have an ego. Like you have an ego. Like you are agreeing to like, you're basically asking people to say, watch me fail in public. Like it's a crazy thing. Like you're like, oh, I'm launching a business, which then means a year later, like if you're not in business, like you failed, right? So it's like you have to have an ego. You also have to have empathy and you have to listen and you have to be able to look at other people's like opinions and like their thoughts. And that second part was hard for me when I was young and got easier.
But we also did one thing I think you liked, because I think this is how I figured out how to get, so when MJ's running all of customer service, basically every customer success. Like, how do we upsell? How do we keep big logos with us? And then you have someone like Jeff, who's just as like magnetic and is getting tons of logos, but they want little changes. And which one do you do? I made this thing where we had the leadership meeting.
We're also scaling like crazy, so
Yeah.
it's like it's just too fast.
It's too
You
fast.
can't
And we're
keep
getting,
up with
and we
little
can't,
things.
all the
Get their
different
standard.
asks are coming in.
From 0 to 50 million in ARR in 3 years.
And so one of
And hiring the
100
like engine to power that.
And so one of the things I said is, okay, I have these incredible leaders and everybody's talking to them and they're getting inbound. And like when Mike writes an email, it's like a long email and I'm trying to get them, like I'm trying to keep the ship steady. We met every week. It was 2.5 hours. It was sacred. I think, no, I gave time back. 2.5 hours. You only got a pass because you were on a honeymoon and other people had funerals. That was it. We called in 100%. And that was the only time the roadmap to whatever we were doing could change. And as a result, we left it all at the kitchen table. So if there were disagreements between you and Jeff, or Jeff, the head of sales, and Patrick, who is the head of technology and product, they would duke it out in front of us. And everything was okay and everything was sacred. And if we made a decision as a team, we all knew why. Even if we didn't like it, we all knew why. And then that roadmap was locked. So that meant I also prevented Mike from going up to the engineering floor ever again. But it also meant that like, no matter what ideas you knew, because you were focused, like I would remember you and Jeff bringing lists of ideas and you would wait and you'd tell us in a week.
The reason why the focus exercise is so important is you're going to have this conversation over and over again. I need this for this customer who I'm trying to sell. They're not going to sign on unless we have it. The product team's like, okay, what should we not build that you also say everyone needs, right? Well, the number one goal right now is, logo growth, new customers. So if they really need it, we're going to kind of do that. There were certain times where we kind of didn't want as many new customers. We needed to upsell our current customers and retain them. Those are much different product features typically. And so by having the focus and we talk about focus so much in the book and how the framework we use for it, you can, as the leader, as the benevolent dictator, explain why you're making decisions. Like, we're doing this because we need to lock down our current clients. Nothing matters if we're a leaky bucket. Like, bring in 10 customers and 10 leave. That's not a business, right? And Kass is like very aggressive, which will surprise no one tonight, which is much better than being passive aggressive. And I say it in a loving way because too many people these days are passive aggressive. They won't say the hard stuff. They won't share their feelings. They won't, Kass, like, if you're pissed off, tell me. I don't read minds, right? Like, there was a culture where you had to, and we've taken it forward, like, you just have to have the hard conversations.
I think the other thing too is like the accountability. We agreed on a direction. We didn't agree in the meeting, but we eventually agreed on the direction. And then whoever was responsible for the different things, they had to come back to that fucking meeting the next week, and they had to do it. Like, it was
like,
remember the Survivor part? Like, you had to do it. You had to come back and you had to do what you said you're going to do.
All counting on each other.
Yeah.
And we also said, if we were doing this, then okay, like, Patrick, you wanted to do this, XYZ, fine. We all agree. Everyone, is shaking their head, not happy, but we agree. Then he had to come back showing us that he built X, Y, and Z. And if he didn't, he had to look at all of us. And that's the thing, is you want to have that accountability. That's the cult. That's the positive cult. Any other questions? Yeah. So if you want to write a book to make money, don't do it. Because this is not going to make any money. I'm hoping it helps a lot of entrepreneurs, but it's not going to like win awards or anything like that. So you have to remember that. For us, like, I'd kept, it's not going to sound like surprising, I'd kept like the lessons over time, the phrases that are clearly burned into MJ's brain. And every lesson, over time in just a memo, and I'd had it. And I kind of think in book titles. Like I always thought like, oh, this would be a great book title, like Perception is Reality, or like the first 4 letters of culture is cult, things like that, right? And or leaders shovel first, and doing that. So I had all the lessons. So when I finally convinced him, he has a master's in journalism. He did not want to write a book. He was the smart one. When I finally convinced him, I just scaffolded it. I put a huge outline together. That took us to write. It was a bumpy first like 3-4 weeks, mostly because I couldn't articulate why I didn't like what he wrote. And then why I didn't like his edits on what I wrote. But after that, it took 3 months. I don't know why it then takes 15 months to sell it, but that's a whole different can of worms.
And the question about should you write as an entrepreneur? No, like, I don't think it takes too long. Like if you want a shitty book that you don't have time to get out there and market, you can do it. But like, you're much better off just doing a podcast where you could like invite potential customers.
That's even
to
too
talk.
much work.
Yeah, but you could tie it into like, so my friend Matt Britton wrote Generation AI. He has $100 million plus
great book.
Software company. It's a great book. And he went really deep into AI. He has a podcast, which he's generated so much revenue because he invites clients and potential clients. It's a way to build relationships, right? Book is a very lonely process. And I think if you ask him how many customers he got from the book, it's like 0, right? Yeah. He did it because he's a serial entrepreneur who had these ideas and
had the ideas.
And he's just like has an incredible work ethic. He did it at night and he got it done.
Also, it's taken us 15 months. Like, I don't understand why it couldn't come out sooner, but we've spent every moment selling it, and it's still not a lot of books sold, just so you know. Unless you guys all want to take these and buy others for your friends on Amazon. Any other questions? Yeah?
You talked about, you were very fearless in right-sizing the company and figuring out, who's where there's slack in the organization. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of performance management systems you put in place to be able to identify that slack? And what did that look like?
And do you do performance reviews every year?
We just started doing it.
Okay, why did you just start?
Because I just joined. It's something that we started to put in place.
That's awesome that you brought that. Mm-hmm. So after 4 people, you should be doing performance reviews, 100%. They're the best use of time to identify, to really spend time thinking about what does and doesn't work, right? 3 people, 4 people, you've got to be doing performance reviews. And you've got to be showing, because remember, perception's reality, that you care about what these people are going to do when the company gets bigger. So you're at 50 people now. If you had, obviously, if the company had done all the performance reviews, you could really start to see it. You have to have a performance review. Look, like I didn't do all the management consulting and Sigma 6 stuff that this guy did. Like he's like a weapon over here. But I did come up with a pretty simple like performance review. I can share it if anybody wants to know it, where people can get reviewed based on categories, right? And it has to be consistent. And I'll give you a trick about performance reviews. I don't like them all throughout the year. I don't like them. I can't tie them to anything that's good that's happening. So if you have people that you are not going to do well on their performance review, it better be during Christmas. So I believe that you do them once a year around Christmas, when bonuses come out, when it's a happier time, things like that. And you have these performance like categories, and you have better been consistent for a long period of time. Other than that, what's your position in the company?
I'm the CFO.
You're the CFO. Are you in charge of HR?
I am.
That sucks for you.
It's fun.
It's fun. You like it.
I do.
So you like spreadsheets and people?
I like the talent management and the HR strategy part of it.
Right. So is it remote?
We're fully remote.
Fully remote. That's harder. That's really hard. So I'm assuming that you are you've talked to everybody in the company, right?
Not one-to-one. I think, part of my challenge is trying to identify where there is slack.
Right. So
and, not being afraid to be the bad guy and
yeah.
not being afraid to fire people and
Yeah,
actually enjoy
so
doing it.
I think if you talk to every single person, you're going to find out more than just talking to a few or just talking to the managers. And that's how you'll identify the slack. Because there's going to be some repeat themes that are going to come up. You can do it at 50 and you better do it quick so that you can cut the fat sooner rather than later. And please don't put this online.
Thank you.
You also do, office hours where you invite people just to come in and share what's going on. We bought a executive search firm, and one of the first things I did, I'm not running the company, but I had office hours and I learned a lot. Like, people typically come in and share what they're concerned about. And, you'll be able to piece it together from
one, or did you do it with
I did that one-on-one, but you could also do groups. But I like one-on-one because there are a lot of people who don't want to talk in front of other people who are very important to an organization. And, the dynamics of, there are a lot of people who love to talk and they talk just to hear themselves talk. And that's difficult.
And the office hours was a nice cover, right? Like, it didn't be like, oh my God, the CFO is talking to me.
I want to meet people. I want to learn about the culture. I want to hear what's working, what's not working. Please sign up. My Calendly is here.
And then if it were me, I'd add food to it. So like, you get them like a Grubhub, like $20 gift card every time they have a meeting with you. And yes, it probably comes out of your pocket.
I got to bribe people to talk to me.
Correct. Food always helps. Any event we've ever had, food. And if you're remote, gift cards.
So you've been successful as a couple, as entrepreneurs, as investors. You didn't touch on investors part. What's next for you guys? Like, I feel like it's a dream of every entrepreneur. Like, I'll build a company, I'll sell it, and then something else, and then I'll retire. Like, any tips on what's kind of like, what are the lessons learned for you after you sold the company and you thought things might be different? And what's next for you, like a next chapter, other than the book, obviously?
So hobbies are things that you love, but you're awful at. So, and Kass actually was very nice. She got me a painting studio, rented an apartment. We don't need to go through all the stories, but if anyone wants a painting, I'm selling those. It's a really good question, and we don't know. We haven't talked about it. We've been working really hard. We have a venture firm. We have this private equity stuff that we're doing, and we have this book. So we've been really busy. We've met a lot of people in this process. We want the next 50 years to be about impact, and we get a lot of joy helping entrepreneurs. We also love starting companies. I love pizza. I want to do 10 pizza places in New York City. I don't know if Kass wants to. I like content, so I think we're going to continue. Our content seems to be resonating with the group, and it's fun. We're now getting paid to speak, which is weird. Like, people are like, oh, come speak, and here's like a lot of money, and so that's like a new thing. And we said yes to some in the fall. We have to like show up and like deliver. I'm a little nervous about that. Like, it's one thing just coming to like give, but like if someone pays you to speak, it's like, I feel like we got to be good. And it's been hard for us to speak together without kind of stepping on each other's toes, figuratively and literally. We did something for the United Way, and it was just awkward. It was pretty awkward. We were handing off the mic, remember?
That's because they didn't have the right to.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, we like making money. We like helping.
Also, we're going to be empty nesters. So
We like traveling.
I'm going to be traveling. And I hope to see as many entrepreneurs as I can across the country. That's what I want to do.
So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Can I say
Thank you.
one last thing? One last thing. We've done 3 events with Stifel this week, and they really are different. They understand startups in a way that I think we would have said SVB maybe at a time did, but they like kind of didn't understand risk management. And And it's not only like you could give your money to a lot of places. And this is like serious. You can give your money and put your money, and you should make sure it's safe. And Chris, who runs, I believe in Chris. He's like really like their CEO is like, oh, he's got his hand on the wheel. So it's going to be safe, but also intros to investors, intros to other entrepreneurs. They have a very healthy kind of lending business, which means less equity that you're giving away. And it's very hard for a lot of these other banks to underwrite what we do, which is a little crazy, right? Like we don't have assets always. We don't have cash flow to underwrite. They're basically underwriting you. And part of the reason why they do the event is to say, like, is this someone we want to underwrite? They're like, we want to get to know them way before they say, I need $1 million, you know, in a loan. And so, you know, thank you to the team. We were just catching up, Brad, really. I had never met Katya, who was amazing. And we had, you know, we met for a coffee. And then in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is perfect because we want to get out there with the book. They have a startup, like he's an entrepreneur who's built this business. And so please, if you can help, you know, give them an ROI on this week, that'd be great. I'm starting to send as many people as I can there. So yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
We don't do that. We only like refer.
We don't, like, I'm not a spokesperson. Like I wouldn't say that, like, unless I believed it.
And that's like,
And Brad like came in with a term sheet at, was it Square One? Was that where you're at? Yeah, Square One Bank. We didn't sign it, so we raised a round instead. But you know, when you know people for many, many years, like you know their track record and their honesty, which is what matters with your banking partner.
and lastly, thank you, MJ. This is really nice of you.
Yes,
We're allowed
Nice
to do
to
this.
practice.
Gonna get someone way better, but I had to show up. So